Boom! What's going on? It's Rahman Mustafa.
It's Emmanuel Hope.
And this is the Ends to Excellence podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a special guest. We have Francesca Danmole. Yeah. How you doing, Francesca? Welcome.
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent. So, for those that don't know, Francesca is a public policy professional with over 10 years of experience.
Small.
Yeah,
Tell them.
Small.
Tell them.
Big guy in the game. She's working in youth development and youth participation, developing young people's skills to make change at different levels, equipping them in skills they need to thrive.
Okay.
She's worked in the Commonwealth Secretariat,
Yep.
the UN,
Hey.
British Council,
Kite.
Government of Sri Lanka,
Tell them.
doing bits.
Oh my gosh.
And her work has also been recognised in the Commonwealth Secretary General, a Government of Bahamas, and she also has a TED Talk.
Yeah.
So go and check that out on YouTube.
Damn.
Yeah, she's doing a lot.
All right.
Welcome again.
I'm even sweating.
Yeah.
I'm even sweating.
Serious woman. So yeah, first thing we ask all of our guests is, what ends are you from, Francesca?
EA all day, every day, Hackney.
Ripping H-Town, yeah?
H-Town.
Yeah.
That's another H-Town as well.
Yo, okay.
Homerton Hospital in that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I was born.
Local. Say no more.
Mad.
And what industry are you thriving in right now? What industry are you excelling in right now?
I'm excelling in politics, so I work in a political industry.
Okay.
Got you. And how did you get into this industry?
That's a journey, you know. How
Oh,
much
really?
time do we
We're
have?
here. This is why we're here, you know. This is why it's a podcast.
Do you know what?
so-
I never ever thought I would be involved in politics. And to be honest, I didn't actually identify I was involved in politics until I was talking to one of my colleagues and she's like, we actually work with politicians. But I wanted to be a pediatric consultant. I was sold on becoming a doctor. When I was in year 3, my teacher, Miss Cardry, dissected a lamb's heart in front of the class.
Mad.
And
Year
I
three?
was like, year 3, I know. I didn't even know she was allowed to do that.
That's
but
what I'm thinking. What
maybe
school?
it was just a
Year three's a
London Fields primary
Heart, you
school.
know.
That
They get heart attack as nothing. Like.
But she dissected a lamb's heart. And when I was younger, I was always interested in how things work. So I was interested to see how the heart worked.
Right.
And I also remember as a child, like I would break things to see how I could put them back together. So I was just like, I'm going to become a pediatric consultant. A consultant because I heard that's the highest level. And I just thought in life, if you're going to be anything,
Be the
top
highest,
business
be the
school.
top.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I wanted to do that, but then I just kept failing science.
Wow.
Like, I failed, not even graciously. I did the same biology paper at A-level 5 times. And every time I got a U.
They even allowed you to
wow.
do it.
I know,
Hey,
like I just kept
After number two.
retaking
After
it.
the
My
fourth,
heart would
I mean-
break. That's when I started writing in a journal, like, God, please.
Hey.
But anyway, went to university, studied psychology, and I studied psychology because when I was younger as well, I said, I'm going to be a pediatric consultant because one day I'm going to open up orphanages and women's refuges, and I want to like have a medical center and also help young people internally as well. So I was going to do psychology at some time. That was my idea. Then I shadowed an educational psychologist for one day. I didn't like his blue Peugeot 206.
Wow.
Wow. It's not my
I
portion.
said the amount of work this man is doing, I cannot come
be
and
pushing
live this
that. Not my
life.
portion.
And I still didn't know what I wanted to do.
Wow.
I graduated from university with a 2-2 because I just didn't focus. And I just did a lot of different things. What I'm grateful for though is throughout my career, I've always worked with young people in a different way. So I was like a youth worker, a mentor, but I never pieced those things together. Graduated, applied to be a trustee for the British Youth Council. I actually applied to be chair because I was ACS president when I was at university, and I was like, why am I going to be a trustee? I'm actually going to apply to be chair.
Yeah.
And then my application got rejected.
Wow.
And then they said, we think you'd make a really good trustee. So I said, all right, cool, let me do that. And I have to be honest, like it was God that prompted me to do that. And I was just like, nah, God, I could be chair. Application rejected. Anyway, I went forward to be trustee, and I'm like skimming through a lot because there's a lot of different details.
All right,
that
slow down.
happen.
So for the listeners out there. So what's the difference between a trustee and a chair of the organization?
If you think of a board, a chair is the one that is like the president. the decisions stop with you. You make the decisions.
Yeah.
A trustee is another person who makes up the board, but is not the decision made the highest level of decision maker.
Like the old guy at the top.
So, like I said, I was ACS president, so I was like, of course, I'm going to be chair.
So is this a paid role? Or these
No,
roles?
this was a voluntary role.
Okay.
And I was at this point, to give it context as well, I had been applying for work when I left uni and no one would employ me. Because
Right,
again, I was
yeah.
like, I was ACS president, I did all these
Yeah, well,
things,
I
I'm going to
don't
change
care.
the world. Nobody would employ me, like whatever. So I was just temping, but again to do with young people, but I didn't make the connection.
Yeah.
So when I saw this opportunity, I applied for it, I went for it, and it was the first thing that I went to interview for, and I felt comfortable, like this is where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they put me forward, and that year I was the only girl that got elected,
Man.
and only a girl could be the Commonwealth Youth Ambassador for the UK. So if I was chair, I wouldn't have been.
Oh,
I wouldn't
really?
have been
But why?
eligible.
Say
Why
why
is
only a
that?
girl?
Okay, wow.
So-
I feel like this is
Even
a
in
bit,
this day and age,
Basically,
diversity and that.
So the Commonwealth has a youth forum where young people get to engage in decision
Yeah.
making.
Okay.
And each year, how it was set up when at that time, so this was 2011, 2013, one of those years, I can't remember. But at that time, it had to be a gender balance. So it meant that
Right.
the year before, a
Got you.
male
Right.
had been,
Got you.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
been
yeah,
on the
yeah.
forum.
That one is
So if
favour.
I was
Yeah,
chair,
yeah.
I would not have been eligible
Makes sense,
because
yeah.
it has to be a trustee, because
Yeah.
the chair is only one year role, and the trustee is 2 year roles.
Yeah.
So anyway, fast forward, I got sent to Australia to the heads of government meeting
Dope.
that was happening in Australia to
Dope.
represent young people in the UK.
Dope.
And this is probably the boldest thing I've ever done in my career, like boldest. I walked up to someone who was in the working at the Commonwealth, and I said, "Do you have any opportunities for young people?" He said, "Yes." Came back to London. I lost the temping job I was working for, but something had prepared me for it, to say, because I had been living, and I'm fast forwarding, and when we speak more, I'll break it down, but I had been living in survival mode, coming from where I'm coming from, knowing that I had to pay for things and contribute to my
Yeah.
household meant
Yeah.
that it's great to have a dream, but when
You
you
need to
need
pay
to charge
bills.
electricity, you can dream after
Yeah,
you do your shift.
yeah,
at
yeah.
work.
Real talk.
So all of those things together, I went to see him, and he said, "What are you interested in?" And I could have said anything in the world, and I said, "I'm going to be honest," and I said, "Education and young people." And he said, "That's so interesting, because someone was consulting on that and they've just left. So if you want the project,
More
it's
favour.
yours."
Hey, take that.
So I took it. I was supposed to be there for 6 months, ended up being there for almost 3 years. I did amazing work, achieved a lot of things. And my role as a British Youth Council
Sorry,
trustee...
let's go back
Sorry,
again. So the actual,
I told you, I'm fast
yeah,
forwarding.
no,
I'm
just
fast
so that
forwarding.
obviously so people can catch the gems in it. So that actual role which was bestowed onto you. So what was that? What was that working under? Was it in the UN still, or what was it?
So my consultancy was directly under the youth division of the Commonwealth Secretariat. So the Commonwealth is kind of like the UN, but no
Right.
one really knows what it is, and it
Okay.
has
So do
hasn't
you
got
wanna
a
break
great
it down for us?
reputation. But it's an intergovernmental organization. So what
Okay.
does that mean? It's made up of members, and the members are, at the time I was there was 54 different countries that were members.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Commonwealth Secretariat helps them do stuff. So there's a youth division, there's a health division, education, political affairs. So it just helps them be better at whatever it is they need, or gives them the support they
Okay.
need to make their countries thrive as best as they can.
Right. Okay.
So I was tasked with developing kind of what we have, like an NUS in the UK, which is the National Union of Students, which represents the interests of young people. But my job was to establish that across 54 countries to
Okay.
represent young people to heads of government and education ministers.
Okay.
And again, I had no international experience. I
Yeah.
was just this girl from Hackney that was elected as a trustee. But I took on the opportunity. I thrived in it.
So was this one paid?
Yeah, this was paid. And
Okay.
what
Jeez.
what I'm grateful for now in hindsight is that my manager at the time, who was amazing, like he was like, if I can say to anyone to anything, is pray for a good manager who
course.
allows you to grow. And I remember I would feel like I was overwhelmed. He's like, the only way you learn how to swim is by jumping into the deep end. So I'm making you jump and you will swim. And he gave me opportunities. I thrived in that. And then, but I stopped growing as well. I stopped growing.
Right.
I came to a point where I stopped growing. Sorry, I actually jumped ahead. What I wanted to say, I forgot, and I still kept on chatting, is that it was paid. And the thing that he pinpointed to me at the time. He's like, I'm not hiring you as a member of staff. I'm hiring you as a consultant because I want you to be able sometime in the future to go into an organization and say, this is what I can deliver because this is what I've been able to achieve. So anyway, that I stopped growing and I started to look for another job.
So why did you stop growing?
If I'm not being challenged, I just stop. So when I first went into that world, again, coming from, I didn't even know where some of these countries were. Tonga, I've never heard of that before. Papua New Guinea, like I didn't know where that was.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started there, everything was a challenge. I think I remember even crying one time because I'm like, I just can't get through the layers of bureaucracy and the decision making and the diplomacy. That's just not what my skill set was. All I've done is been ACS president. That's not what this requires from me. But then once I did that and I was able to do my role in like 2 days as opposed to being there for 5 days, that's how I start to measure my growth. I'm not growing, I'm not being challenged. The deputy chief executive from the British Youth Council, which is what I was a trustee for, my term had come to an end, I stopped being on the board, sent me a message on Facebook and said, Francesca, we have a role as a policy officer, would you like it? I didn't apply for the role. I was looking for a job.
He was headhunted.
Snipe.
I had a meeting with him. I spoke about the work I had done at the secretariat, but they also knew me because I was on the board and they offered me the role. And I've been there since and I've been growing and achieving and
So you've been there for how long?
Coming up to 5 years.
5 years, wow.
Years. I know, it's a wow, it is.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
It's good that you've done good work.
So to answer your question, that's why I said, how long do we have? You said, how did I get into politics?
Yes.
I never ever thought I was going to get into politics. I was just always interested in fixing broken things. And how I can articulate it now is my work in policy allows me to fix broken things within society because that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So that heart metaphor is still there. I just use policy as the method to be able to do that.
Dope. So for a young person listening to the podcast, what would you say is the way to get into what you do or into politics in general?
What is the easiest way?
Yeah,
I say this all the time, like, contact people. So, and I'll give you an example for me. It was so far removed from what it was that I never even thought it was an option. And what I wish someone would have told me is just to be exposed to it, to say this is an option and to have work experience. So, for instance, I work with young people in my church and I'm always like to them, if you need work experience, tell me you need work experience. Because I can use my network to help you get work experience. And so to get involved in politics, I would say if write to your MP and say you want to shadow them for a week, if you are one of their constituents, they have a responsibility to respond to you. So they have to respond to you. Contact me if you want to get involved.
We'll
send me an email
Francesca's
and
details.
I will make it happen.
Address,
like I'll make it happen because it's something I'm
address.
passionate about. Because I walk into many rooms, I'm the only black female, sometimes the only black person in the room, and a lot of the times I'm the only person from the background that I'm coming from in that space. And if there's one thing I want my legacy to be is to let the people them enter the room, take a seat, establish their legacy, because it's important. It's important.
That's dope. That's dope. So you mentioned being the only black female in the room. So tell us, like, what things you had to overcome being in that situation.
What things do I still have to overcome? And some of it I wouldn't say is so much based on being black, but growing up in Hackney, and my story is not unique. I grew up in a single parent household. I know what it is to your family to survive on welfare. I know what it is to not have those kind of things. My family was homeless when we were 19. We lost everything we had. And that's not even when I was really young. That's when I was just about to go to uni. And I would say those things played a bigger thing, and the fact that I'm black was another layer, if that makes sense.
Got you.
So when you walk into rooms and people know less than you, but they have the confidence to speak above you, those things, that kind of imposter syndrome was very, very real to me. And sometimes being the only black person in the room, it's kind of like I've been in situations where people expect me to have the answers for all black people, and it's like I don't represent all black people actually. I don't know what's happening in Zimbabwe. I've never been there. I don't know. And also on the other layer where at times I feel like I have to defend because people make blanket statements, and it's like, actually, if I said that about any other strand of diversity, we would be having a HR issue, that kind of thing. And just the realities. And I just feel like as a black woman in this space, people prepare you for so much, but sometimes just not being confident in your difference to be able to sit in a room and be like, it is what it is, I'm different, and we're just going to all have to deal with that and move on with it.
So you mentioned imposter syndrome. Like, obviously, for as long as I've known you, for people who don't know, we all went to uni together, so that's the hidden secret. But for as long as I've known you, you're quite a confident person.
That's imposter.
Maybe that's the veneer which you just. When you take off the mask, maybe you're just carrying and crying at home.
And I say this a lot on my personal Instagram page, and when I say certain things, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe," and I'm like, transparency is a principle that I hold, and there are so many situations that I have had to do afraid. Like, I used to hate speaking in front of people. I remember when I was at university, I'll never forget this. I will not name the person, but I said, when I do my autobiography, everybody that has shagged me in my life is going to get named.
Wow.
Everybody's going to get named. But I remember someone saying to me, every time you speak, you try to impact people's lives, and you just need to humble yourself. And I was thinking, I don't even like to speak in front of people. Like, where is that even coming from? But those things played on my mind for so long that sometimes, yes, I can, and the thing is, I will always deliver, but the journey to that is not just something I wake up and do and stand in front of people or sit in a room and know what I'm saying, to the point where about 2 years ago, so we had a change in chief exec in the charity I work for at the British Youth Council. And we sat in a supervision, which is like a one-on-one meeting where, you know, you check in, how is everything going? And she's like, you don't talk in meetings. And I was like, because if I don't have nothing to say, I'm not saying anything. But this was consistent, like team meetings. And the team I worked in were like, oh, but Francesca has so much knowledge. Why isn't she contributing? And that is how I would say my imposter syndrome played out, because I was trying to find, how do I fit in here? And am I enough to be in this space? As opposed to just saying, I'm going to say what I want to say. And if it doesn't land properly, we'll deal with it. Because I've been in many a meeting where people are not making sense at all. But they're confident in them not making sense.
Are you pulling them up though?
Now I do. Like, do you know what my favorite thing to do in meetings now? Like, someone has really spoken with vim and passion, and I say, I disagree with that, actually. And they go red. They don't know what to do. But I disagree. I don't actually have anything else to say. Actually, I disagree. Like, I remember, actually, I'll tell a real story. I sat in a meeting in Parliament, and I go into Parliament a lot as part of my role. And I met with MP's office. Listen, this woman tested me on so many levels, because you're huffing and puffing, sis. Why are you doing that?
Chill out.
Because if I did that as a black woman, people would say I was being aggressive. But she's huffing and puffing, telling me that we have to do this event together. And I said, I don't have to do anything, actually. And I actually don't have to do it.
Wow.
And she was like, oh, but you know, the MP is going to be really upset. And she said that then she sent me an email and said, the MP is really disappointed. I said, I'm really disappointed in you, though. I am. And then she's like, this is what we have to do. And I said, no, I actually disagree with that approach. I don't believe that's the right thing to do. It's not my job to come up with a solution. You came to me with a proposal. I don't like the proposal, so I'm telling you, it's not happening. Actually. It's not happening.
So then, so for everyone listening, how did you get to this from a stage to obviously feeling a bit, would timid be the right word?
Yeah, timid is the right word.
From being timid in a group setting to now being able to speak your mind regardless of how people take your views?
It is years of a couple of things. It's years of work experience, I would say. But if I could say something to my younger self, I would say, and it's a quote people use all the time, is to speak the truth even if your voice shakes. And a lot of the time I wouldn't speak the truth with my voice shaking because I didn't want my voice to shake.
And you didn't want people to know that you're
I didn't want people to know that I wasn't sure. But I think there is such power in just being your authentic self. There's also another quote which I live by, which is, I'm allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. I don't have to have the answer, but I'm actually amazing at a lot of different things.
Okay.
But I didn't always believe that. I would always, as a person, I would focus more on my areas of progress than I would on the things that actually worked. Having mentors helped as well. And one of some of the things that my mentors have consistently said is sometimes to just look at the journey and the like where you have come from. And even if as a young person you haven't come from somewhere, your life is so significant that whenever you are in a room, that is significant. You already bring value. Yeah. I used to think I had to add things to myself to bring value. And like last year specifically, I made a decision to say every single room I walk into, I'm going to act like I belong there. So even now, like I caught one of my colleagues, we had an issue in January. He tried me. And I also work in a culture where it's easy for people to say, oh, like, that's what someone did to me. And I'm like, I'm just not that girl. That's not who I am. So I sent him a meeting. I sat down with my manager and I told my manager, I'm going to have this conversation with X person. And she's like, do you want me to get involved? I said, I don't need you to get involved. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I had a conversation with him. We spoke about our differences and we kept it moving. And I was proud of myself in that situation because I was like, actually, to me, this is what confidence is for me. It's being able to hold your own in all things. And the same way I would hold my own in ends, if someone tried me, it's the same thing I'm doing in the workplace. It's not like why. And that's what I had to make the shift in my mind. I stand up for what I believe in. If I believe that same thing, it's being able to navigate through and understand when you flip it from urban to corporate. So I'm not coming in here being ignorant, but I'm going to use all my fancy words to express how I feel, and everybody's going to listen.
Basically, make sure you elocute, basically.
That's dope. So in as far as like policy, working in government, talking to MPs, like what's your typical day like?
I can talk about today actually. My typical day is, in my role, I work with different partner organizations. So a lot of my work is driven by what young people prioritize. So I work for a membership organization, and we currently have parliamentary priorities, so issues young people want us to address in Parliament. Cool. And then I manage all of our advocacy work, so engaging young people in policy, getting young people's voices heard in different decision-making mechanisms with decision makers. And so my day-to-day is working on creating the environments that allow young people to engage and saying young people need to be in the room. So an example is there was a serious youth violence summit that happened in number 10. And my role in that was to get young people in the room, to brief young people and to do the follow-up work. And then do it in such a way that now we can present that if there are high-level meetings taking place, I can get young people into the room, but these are the things you have to do to make it accessible. Also, like consulting young people. So what is it that young people think is important? Managing different processes where I can find out what a young person in Yorkshire thinks is important and bringing that to a national level and making sure MPs are listening to what that young person in Yorkshire says. And that work primarily is based on working with a network of youth workers and local authorities that work face to face with the young people. And then I manage a network of elected representatives. So over the years that I've been at the British Youth Council, I can tell you which MPs support different issues. And when something is going on in Parliament, they either call me to say, Francesca, I'm about to ask a question in the chamber. Can you send me a briefing? I send them a briefing. Or Francesca, there is something happening. Can you send a young person? I go to find a young person who's campaigning on that issue and make sure they're in that space, all with the guise of making sure young people's voices are heard in decision making.
That's wavy. No, that's great work. That's great work. In order to do all of that, is it a lot of like clapping back at people, or are you writing emails, or like what's like?
There's not so much clapping back, but what I find is, and this is as my confidence is grown, is being able to say no. So an example is, I might get an email from a partner organization who doesn't primarily work with young people. So the organization I work for, we say our expertise is in youth participation, so engaging young people in a meaningful way. But other organizations, that's not what their expertise is, but they want a young person in a room. But your meeting is at 11 o'clock and you want young people from around the UK and the meetings in London. That's not happening. or be like just pushing back. Like recently, there was an MP in the government, or she's not in the government anymore, but she wanted to have a meeting with young people. And the time of day when it was like it's exam period, no one's coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
The meeting's not going to be meaningful if you tell me it happens tomorrow. So being able to push back to say, if you want to reach your outcomes and to help us make sure young people feel like that, like they're being heard and valued, these are the things that you need to consider, and working with them on that way. I'm currently working on a project with a government department to get young people's voices actually engaged in policy making. And some of that is pushing back as well to say your timelines aren't realistic. You want young people to feed back on a 25-page policy document. That is not accessible. Like nobody is going to read that. And so challenging them to say, if you want to make it meaningful for young people, you need to change what you're doing. And if you can't change it, then bring us alongside you to help upskill you in that way, so we can show you how to work with young people.
Got you.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
So cool. So your long and trusted career so far. So on the flip side, like, what's the biggest thing you've regretted so far?
In my role?
It just
General
up to date,
my career.
like for your
Wow,
career.
that's a big question. I don't really have regrets. And I know that's like an easy thing to say.
Okay, we can put it a different way. Like, is there something where along the line you do something differently?
I would take up more opportunities. And I say that that sounds like a blanket statement, but when I think about the lifespan of my career, specifically at the Commonwealth Secretariat and the British Youth Council, because those are the two professional policy places that I've worked in, there are different times where I've counted myself out and I've allowed people to make decisions for me as opposed to making the decision or putting myself forward. And when I look back, I'm like, I could have blatantly done that. I just counted myself out because I didn't think I could. Like, I didn't have the information and stuff like that. So I would say taking up opportunities that presented themselves.
So would you say kind of take the opportunity and then learn on the job?
Yeah, 100%. One of the Tyra Banks said this in America's Next Top Model. I'm not a fan of it, but you see it in memes that you should fake it till you make it. And I find that, and it goes back to this imposter syndrome thing. People that come from backgrounds like mine don't often fake it till they make it in certain industries.
100%.
We feel like we have to tick every
All
single
the boxes,
box. When there are some people that might tick one box, but the confidence they have means that they are now leading something. And when they talk about it, you will think that they are the ones that created the whole thing. And that's what I mean about that confidence thing. So definitely fake it till you make it. Now I do things that I know I'm not 100% qualified for, but I'm going to learn how to do it. And if it doesn't work, I take it, and you learn from that as well.
Why do you think that is? Like, people in our community don't fake it till they make it. They need to be like ready 100%.
I think it is that imposter syndrome thing. Like walking into rooms and you could potentially be the only one like you. That's a big thing to deal with. That I do believe that young people need to be better prepared for, because and there are different levels to it, because when you go into a professional environment, you are often the only one. But nowhere along the line did anyone kind of prepare you for that. You just kind of get in there and then you're laughing at jokes with Jim. You don't care what Jim is saying. You feel like you have to. And actually you don't. Do you get what I mean? But it's building that confidence. I also think there's something around education as well. I care about education because I believe education creates opportunities. And depending on the kind of school you go to, the kind of environment you go to, the kind of information you receive, prepares you for things. 100%. And unfortunately, people from our communities are often being prepared later. And I'll give an example. I'm a Sunday school teacher, and I remember there was a girl that she was 8 years old. She went to a private school. And when she was 8, she said she knows what college she's going to at Cambridge University. At 8 years old.
Wow.
Because the school she was going to prepared her for things like that. Or I hear stories of another girl that I know. She is about 10. And her school suggested for her to go to this like STEM camp in an Ivy League school in America. Me at 31 years old. Do you get what I mean? And it's that thing of when you are exposed to more and you can make informed decisions and you create options out of the opportunities you have, I believe that you will be better prepared.
Yeah.
So I know for me, the young people I work with that come from backgrounds that I can identify with, that understand what it is to have the challenges. And I go back to this thing, everyone tells you to dream, but there's no electricity on the key. So I can't dream right now because actually we need to...
It's dark in the house.
Is about taking up different opportunities that make you uncomfortable. So when you go into different spaces, you're all right because actually I'm choosing to be here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, sorry, did you have a question? Cool. So, just taking it back. Let's fall back a bit. Yeah. So obviously, a question which we often get asked, and judging even just by what you just said, like you care a lot about education. If you had the opportunity to rethink your steps about going to uni, do you think that having a university degree or even just entering uni, obviously with all the fees and etc., was it worth it? Would you skip that step?
That's such a controversial question. For me,
studying psychology.
I don't. Everyone.
Because
In fact, that was a waste of 27 grand.
Yeah, because you said that.
I don't use my psychology.
Yeah, you said that. Obviously, you got a 2-2 and stuff.
But you know, when you talk to people, that's psychology. No, it isn't.
Wait, what?
Who says that?
Say that. But also, and I used to always have this argument with my mum because I don't believe you need to go to university to be successful. But I believe you need to have a plan. Like I think about when I have children, I want to be in a position financially where however much education is, I want to make an investment in you for the next 3 years of your life.
Okay.
If that investment is university, here's the money you need to go to university. If that investment is to start a business and you come to me with a plan, let's do that. But whatever it is, make the investment. And do I believe that university is right for everyone? No. Do I believe you need to go to university to study some of the courses that I hear people studying? No. Do an apprenticeship. Get paid while you're studying. And I do think there's something about people not making informed decisions because if you don't know where you want to be in 5 years' time, maybe you don't need to go to university right now. Maybe it might not be the best option for you. And I also have this other thing. You didn't ask me this question. People that then go do the undergraduate degree and go straight into a master's, and then you don't end up in that field anyway.
Right.
For me, it is about when you are empowered to make an informed decision because you have the options before you, then you say, I am making a conscious decision to take this route. And I'm taking this route because I know it's going to lead me somewhere. Yeah. If I don't know where it's going to lead me, I don't need to be walking down that road until I have the information.
Yeah.
So would you have gone to uni?
I would have studied something else at university.
But you would have gone to uni?
I would have gone to uni. Nobody along my journey ever asked me or allowed me to pay attention what I was good at. I wasn't good at science from secondary school, but I was determined to be a doctor because I wanted to open orphanages and women's refuges. Nobody said to me, but you could be a billionaire and pay somebody to be a doctor. You don't have to do that yourself. Yeah. If somebody would have given me that careers advice or I had that interface, I met different people who were doing different things, I would have made an informed decision to say, actually, because I was thriving I wasn't trying to be good at law. But I was getting B's and A's and I didn't try. Yeah. I was trying to do science. And nobody paid attention to that. If someone paid attention to that, I would have just done...
Let's put them on blast.
I would have just done subjects that I know I was good at. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that.
So
100%. So yeah, so you would have gone.
Just not studied psychology.
So, do you think to do your job now, do you need a degree to do your job?
To get to where I want to in my job, I need a degree.
Yeah.
I need a master's as well. So where I am is not where I want to be. And I actually want to do another master's as well. Because for me, it's about...
She's got one already, guys.
For me, it's about the networks and developing the processes to make effective change through policy. To be able to understand policy processes and not... To be able to understand policy processes, you need education. But our civil service in the UK doesn't necessarily require you to have a degree. In fact, I don't think a lot of things require you to have a degree. You just need the experience. Yeah. But for me, it's about the theory. Like, I believe I need to understand political economy. I need to understand how different things affect decisions we make. And that's not just going to come from me speaking to someone. Unless there was an apprenticeship that allowed me to be shadowed under someone who would give me that like training and skill. I don't like education like that personally. I think it's important. If I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't.
Right.
But just having that knowledge base is important, and you can see the difference in a room.
Got you.
I see.
So what would you say, moving forward now, what are your future plans?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
in my dream, not in my dreams, in my plans, I only want to work 2 days a week, but I want to get paid like I'm working 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a dream still.
My dream is to consult with governments to just make policies that make people's lives better. I care about education, poverty alleviation, social mobility, and democratic engagement of underrepresented groups, specifically Black people, because I'm Black. Like, that's important to me. And also breaking down socio-economic barriers. In my heart of hearts, what I would take a bullet for, I don't believe that people should be hindered because of the amount of money they have. And that grieves me in so many different ways. And being able to help governments make better decisions. So my dream is that when decisions are being made about those things, they're like, if we don't have Francesca in the room, there's going to be a problem.
Call up.
That's who
Specialist.
That's who I want to be.
Specialist.
Yeah.
So, like, one thing which I noticed we haven't actually spoken about is, so the financial side, what's the money actually saying?
It's not. Listen, it's not.
You say it's a lot of passion.
It's not. And the thing is, I'm trying to drive my children to school in a Bentley Bentayga. That's what I want.
Not that
Okay.
Porsche.
No disrespect. If that's what you want, fantastic. That's not what I want. I want my children to go to school in a Bentley truck.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Not the full name, you know.
And the thing is, there is money to be made in different ways.
But
and
not
that's why
in your actual field right now. Is it lucrative?
Do you know what there is? And it depends. So if you were a public policy person in the corporate world, you will be making like 5 times the amount of money I make.
Okay.
I work in the charity sector. The charity sector, you do not make a lot of money. And even if I go wider, I have experience in working in international development through the Commonwealth Secretariat. Their pay grade is very different to what I am making because it's that sector as well. But also I have the ability to like increase my earnings significantly by being a freelancer because people pay you for the skill that you have. And that's why for me, my goal isn't to work for an organization. It's to have a skill set that you're like, I need that to be able to make a difference.
Like, got you. Throw in the bag type of vibe.
And I also want to be someone who provides employment opportunities for other people. That's why I don't want to work for anyone. I want just so many things about what my upbringing was like. I want to be able to make solutions or bring solutions to those different things.
Right.
So, But the money, I could be making more money.
Yeah.
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 We need that Bentley Bentayga.
Yeah. And even in the charity sector, there are differences. So depending on the size of charity you work for. So in my field, it could be anywhere from like 30,000 to 50,000, and your job title is exactly the same. Your responsibilities are exactly the same. It just depends. And that's in the charity sector. If I was working in the corporate sector, it's different.
I got you. So, you got a question?
I was going to ask, so we've done your work and your future plans. What do you do outside of work?
I do a lot of things.
Juggles.
So one of the things I do is I started an organization called The Smilers, which stands for Smile, but they are the group, and it's shifting mindsets, impacting lives everywhere. And if I'm honest, this is another dream that people sell you, that everyone is an entrepreneur. It's not true. It's not for everybody. But there is a skill set that I have that isn't currently used within my day job. And one of my dreams in the next 3 years is to bring those things together in the Smilers. So have an element where I'm consulting on public affairs and policy and government relations, but another aspect where I would say in my corporate social responsibility, giving back in terms of upskilling young people with the skills to make a difference in their own communities.
So that's the skill set which you believe you have, but you don't do it in your day job.
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm also a freelance facilitator or trainer. Okay. So I do different things ranging from coordinating consultations on policy. So when there are different government meetings or ministerial meetings around the world, I go in, work with young people to say, what is it that you want governments to know? Take them through a series of workshops and develop their asks for government. And then it goes to the government ministers at the end for them to endorse. Dope. And on the other side, I do facilitation. So someone has a program or a project, and I go in to deliver that on behalf of an organization. So recently, I have been doing work with HSBC and the British Council in the Middle East on a life skills program to help develop the life skills, so communication, resilience, confidence, and some other skills in young people in that region. And then I do talks in schools based on my experience, and run my own workshops on goal setting and how to overcome challenges, because I've said this is the third time I'm saying this here. The thing about having a dream and knowing you want to do things, but the environment that you live in sometimes is the biggest challenge, and just how let's have a real conversation about how you navigate through that and still be all you want to be, but do it at a pace that is comfortable to you, knowing that you have the skills to overcome those challenges.
Okay. No, it sounds like you're doing a
So
lot.
so in terms of outside of work, what's your, like, it may sound like a silly question, innit? But what's your goals outside of work? As in, like, for example, we've had like different guests on here speak about, you know, they want to buy a house, get married, and X, Y, and Z. So what is your goals outside of work? And how do you think maybe your career impacts that in a negative or a good way?
I don't really understand the question.
Okay, let's say...
Sorry, I tried to dress it up so we can keep flowing.
No,
That's that I disagree. she hit you with one of those, bro.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, like, for example, okay, let me give a negative. Let me give a negative point of view.
Does your work impact you in like relationships and family life and stuff like that?
No, and I would say no, it doesn't. Maybe my mum might disagree. I'm sorry, mum. I'm coming to Milton Keynes, but no. But I'm driven by purpose as a person, and I believe that everything I do flows from that purpose. And so, would a relationship impact that? Not so much, because my relationship has to align with my purpose.
Okay.
I want, like, there are so many things I want to do, but all of it is born out of my purpose, if that makes sense. And so even the work I do aligns with that, because if it didn't, I wouldn't be doing it, because I'm a purpose-driven person.
Yeah.
No is the answer.
Add some more
on the flip
seasoning.
side, I didn't actually, but it's fine, we can delve. But like, so on the flip side, like, for example, the only reason why I asked you is that, for example, I want to say solely women, but let's just say men and women. Let's just say, okay, they reach a certain point in their life where they've been the hectic, head down in work, then they say, wait a minute, I want to improve for myself personally. So let's say I want to now start finding a husband or wife. How do you now balance that career with all of that type of jazz?
But that's why I say I link it to purpose, and I say that.
So you don't think that there'll be a time where you'll be like,
for instance, let me give you a real life example.
Go on.
I want to go to Harvard, to go to Kennedy School to study public policy. I recognize that's 2 years abroad. I'm a 31-year-old woman. I'm not currently in a relationship. I'm not married. And I'm not going to have children without being married. Yeah. And there was a time in my life where I was like, oh my gosh, but when is this going to happen? Like, if it happens now, what does this mean? Yeah. And like, if I'm in a relationship, how am I now going to say to a man, I'm sorry, Harvard. Babe, I want to go to Harvard. Like, does this fit in with our plans? And then I said, no, like, I'm not going to live my life by permission. I want to go to Harvard. And the man I marry, he will understand that, and together, because our purposes will align. And I see it like this. I'm running in a certain direction, and I'm running towards what I believe I've been called to do. And the person we will meet on that road of running, I'm not having to stop to say, hey.
I see. Okay.
Who's coming to run?
Are you chasing? All right. No, that's what's happening.
Okay, I'll start running.
That's how I see it. And I say this, and I have to bring faith into it, because it's a massive part. It's the most important part of my identity, in that when I stand before, my biggest ambition in life is to stand before God, and he says, Francesca, well done. You did everything I asked you to do. That's what I'm working for, that set of applause. And everything in my life has to fit in with that. And if it doesn't fit in with that, then I don't want it.
I see.
Because everything else becomes meaningless.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Was your question answered, Ian?
I in parts.
What was it answered? What do you want to know? Tell me. What is it that you want to know?
No, I'm playing.
But yes, thank you for joining us, Francesca. We've learned a lot about policies and your passions and things like that. I'm trying to wrap up, but how can people get in contact with you? You said like job opportunities and things like that. Where's the best place to reach you?
The best place to email me, and I don't know if this is going to be like when you put this out.
We'll find a way.
You'll put it out. You can email me personally, and this is how you know I'm not set up as anything. But
So you're gonna give me a house address as well.
Wow. Phone number. Put me on WhatsApp.
You can email me at thesmilers@gmail.com, which is thesmilers@gmail.com. And if you are interested you want work experience, or you just want to know a bit more about what I do that. You can contact me or connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Francesca Danmole, and it will be on the podcast.
We'll put the full name.
But let me know. There are different things, and I'm really passionate about people fulfilling their potential. And if there's any way I can be a part of someone doing that, then it is an honor to serve you in that way. So let me know.
Appreciate that.
Excellent. No, you're doing some great work.
Excellent.
Francesca.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
I've always wanted to be on a podcast. I've always wanted to be on one.
And there you are.
I'm fulfilled.
You can stop now.
I'm fulfilled.
Mad. This is the Ends to Excellence podcast. Thank you for listening. Boom.